On today's Locked On Jayhawks, on a day where Travis Hunter had 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, Devin Neal was the best player on the football field, and Kansas grinds Colorado into a 37-21 victory.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Derek Johnson, you can find me on Twitter at DJohnsonRadio, on Blue Sky at Derek Johnson. And Kansas takes down Colorado 37-21. Devin Neal deserves a statue. Travis Hunter might walk away from the season with that little gold statue. Devin Neal deserves a gigantic golden statue in front of the new Memorial Stadium, because on a day where you played the probable Heisman Trophy winner and a possible Heisman Trophy winner, however you want to view it, Devin Neal was the best player on the field. If Kansas had more wins right now, that would be a Heisman moment. An unbelievable performance on senior day for Kansas, and they get a top 20 win over Colorado. We're going to break down what happened in the game. We're going to break down why Devin Neal is going to be a fan favorite for not just, the rest of this season in his time at KU, but for a lifetime for KU football fans. We'll get to our goats of the game, as well as what's next for KU. Again, thank you to the everydayers tuning in each and every show. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. Find us anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page with Locked On Jayhawks. This episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Kansas 37, Colorado 21. So Travis Hunter had a good game for Colorado, and it was just the Devin Neal show. And that's what this whole game was about for me. It was Devin Neal. I know it was senior day. There are a lot of seniors for KU, and a lot of them contributed in different ways in this game. Jalon Daniels made some key plays, and we're going to talk about some of those things over the course of this. But at the end of the day, you had a running back who carried the ball 37 times for 207 yards with 3 touchdowns, 5.6 yards per carry on a huge load. And he had 4 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. So Devin Neal had 41 touches for 287 yards and 4 touchdowns. Colorado had 308 yards of offense. Devin Neal had 287 yards as an individual. And yeah, the defense deserves credit too. You hold Colorado to 21 points. You had some big situational stops. There are a lot of things that went into this win, but the biggest headline is about Devin Neal. And I say this about the statue thing. I feel like it's one of those things when you have a current player where it's almost hard to view the history of how beloved are they going to be. I don't think that's the case with Devin Neal. We are living history right now. He is already KU's career leader in rushing yards, in rushing touchdowns, of which he is building himself quite the nest egg right now over these recent games in terms of having the lead over next best in some of those. He is finding himself on top of records for individual game records, season records, career records. You'll be able to make the argument that he is the most accomplished running back in KU history. You'll be able to make the argument he's the best running back in KU history, but when you make that argument, you start to bring in as much as I don't know, if you are having the conversation about KU, should what Gale Sayers did in the NFL or John Reagan did in the NFL matter? I don't know. Maybe it's all one thing, body of work. And maybe what happens in the NFL with Devin Neal, where he certainly will be next year, will matter to that. But as far as just a Kansas career, he is the most accomplished. By accomplishing all those career things and by making back-to-back bowl games and a chance with one more win for Kansas this year to make another bowl game, he is the most accomplished running back in KU history. And this was his, he's had other great games too, right? I think about the Oklahoma State game that got them bowl eligible, but this is almost the swan song to that. And think about this. This is one thought that I had coming from this game afterwards. I think a lot of times that, I don't know, people talk about the past of Kansas history, whether it's talking with your friends, talking with your buddies, reminiscing, talking KU history, KU football, whether it's to your kids or just to a friend or whoever. You bring up past performances that you will never forget, past individual performances that will always come to mind for you. And obviously there are team performances in this too, right? Breaking the streak against Nebraska in 2005, the Sports Illustrated game against Nebraska in 2007, the Orange Bowl, certain bowl games, upsetting Oklahoma last year, right? Maybe beating Oklahoma in the 90s, pick a Missouri game, right? there are games that everybody has and remembers. There are performances, that people tell their kids about. Like, hey, Tony Sands is on the big board, and then maybe your kid asks you, hey, Dad, who's that? Oh, let me tell you, Tony Sands did this against Missouri. Or June Henley did this when they played at an undefeated Colorado team for what was a big win for Kansas in the, was it 94, 95 season for KU. And I think, by the way, Henley and Sands, I think were at the game and took a picture with Devin Neal, so that was cool. Todd Reesing against Nebraska, or a litany of other games, like Jake Sharp against Kansas State, David James against Tennessee, even though it was a loss. Like, there are games that go down in KU football lore for not just the team results, but also what an individual might have done. Whatever it is, whoever it is, for you specifically, you're going to be discussing Devin Neal. You're going to be discussing the Devin Neal game. In that game, the same way for a long time as those other ones that we have glorified in KU football past. And I think that is really cool. And what an, obviously unbelievable performance by the offensive line to help him do that and to keep Jalon Daniels mostly clean, and by the defense and by Jalon and all these things. Senior day was about all the seniors, but it became Devin Neal day very quickly. And it was so deserving. It was so awesome for somebody who stuck around in town, somebody who is like the best kid in the world, somebody who continues to work to the grindstone and represents the university in the very best way possible. It was Devin Neal day today in Arrowhead. Now, getting to the game, big picture itself, I'm curious because Kansas, it was 23-21. Travis Hunter gets that touchdown where he just gets like wide open and then sidesteps by the safety. It was 23-21. Kansas was up 2. And at the time, Colorado, it felt like they couldn't really be stopped. They had the one stop on kind of the fourth down. Kansas was possessing the football. But Kansas had those 3 drives where they got stopped the short field goals. I'd be curious to know how many people were sitting there going when it was 21-21 feeling like, oh no, missed the shot. Like they had the opportunity to go for the kill shot if they would have gotten the touchdown on one of those other drives or something like that. And now you shot yourself in the foot. I certainly would have blamed you if you had that thought, but this team has something special going on. And I don't know how it's going to finish off next week. Like, it's got to be hard to come off 3 straight ranked wins and get yourself up emotionally and physically to that same level next week at Baylor. I hope they can finish it off. I certainly do. I would love this team to make a bowl game, and what a story that would be. It's going to be hard, though. And Baylor's been a pretty good team. They've been a lot better than people thought, really, before the season started and really even a few weeks into the season. But this team, it's an unbelievable sustained run. I don't know if I have ever, quite honestly, seen a sustained run for, like, if we were to give like a 5-game sustained run for KU football. In my time watching KU football, I don't think I've ever seen as good of a 5-game run as this. I should say in my time of so I went to KU in, I don't know what, like 2013, something like that, right? So I'm not going back to like the Orange Bowl days. You're talking about a decade plus of football, right? I mean, you could talk about like last year was a great team. I think if you take this 5-game stretch, which would be the blowout win over Houston, these 3 ranked wins, and the only loss, a road game against a pretty good Kansas State team that you very easily could have won, it's probably the best set of football that I've ever seen Kansas play. Like, if you were to take the team that is playing right now against last year's Kansas team, I'm taking this one. Now, unfortunately, you do have to count the early part of the season, and that does count to all this, but this is the best ball they've played. You played a quality team in Colorado who's ranked top 20 in the country. You out-yarded them 520 to 308. You had over a 200-yard advantage. You were a 4-6 team against the 16th ranked team in the country. Kansas ran for 331 yards. They didn't necessarily have a huge passing game. It was under 200 yards passing, but whenever they needed to pass, they could. Like, Kansas very easily in this game, if you were to redo the game and just be like, hey, we're going to need you to pass for 300 yards and run for 200. I think they could have done it. They averaged 9 yards per pass. They just didn't need to pass as much. They were running the ball so effectively. Kansas went 9 of 14 on third down. They were 2 of 2 on fourth downs. You hit all the money downs. You held Colorado to just 3.2 yards per carry. You had that key fourth down stop. You had some key stops at the end of the game. You had that key fourth down stop at the end of the game too. You made situational plays defensively. Really, the only things that didn't go well for you was, I guess, first half, like red zone offense, and then maybe pass defense for the full of the game with Colorado able to move the ball up. But even then, like, I don't know, they ended up with 21 points. Shedeur Sanders at 266 yards. So maybe that would just be something that applied for more of the first half. Bottom line here is this. You made some more memories. You made some more memories on senior day for the seniors, for the fans in attendance. Like I said, you'll remember this as Devin Neal Day. You captured an unbelievable run of KU football. 3 straight ranked wins. It's never happened for KU football. It's never happened for a team with a losing record. You have made history. And it didn't even take, like, that's what's crazy to me. If you would have told me Kansas was going to win these 3 games, I would have figured, like, okay, they probably, like, continued to play pretty well because they'd been playing well. Even in some of the losses, we knew they were close losses, but they just kept making mistakes at the fatal point of the game. But overall, for the majority of the games, they had played pretty well. I would have figured that they would have played well in all these 3 games, Iowa State, Colorado, BYU, and then maybe they just got a little bit of one luck reversion back their way. Maybe instead of being unable to jump on the ball against UNLV, they would be the team that, jumped on the football, or the other team couldn't jump on the ball, or they get a weird tipped interception. That, like, maybe they were the team that got some one-score luck reversion. They haven't even needed it. Like, maybe a little bit in the BYU game. You had the punt, obviously. Like, that certainly helps. BYU game, sure, that classifies. But in the other 2, you've won by double digits. You haven't even needed it. And that is what is even more incredible in all this. And you have now, beyond it all, crawled up from the basement. You are now just 1 win away from bowl eligibility and a chance to do something that Kansas football, I mean, they've already accomplished some things that Kansas football has never done. But you've got a chance to do one other thing. Kansas football has never made 3 consecutive bowl games. You are 1 win away from doing that after Devin Neal Day and Senior Day occurred in Arrowhead. We're going to continue on our GOATs of the game next. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Our episode today is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, where if you got Kansas plus 2.5 before the game, if you got a money line, you're feeling even better. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, continuing on with this episode of Locked on Jayhawks, make Locked on College Football, Locked on College Basketball your second listen every day. Thanks for making this your first listen every day. Let's get to our GOATs of the game. If you're new to the show, we do good GOATs, bad GOATs. Good GOATs is kind of the new age of the word, greatest of all time, yada, 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 over-exaggeration, new kid speak. Bad GOATs is, when I was growing up, is a bad thing to be a GOAT, right? There's kind of a scapegoat. You didn't want to be the GOAT. Let's start with the good GOATs. Let's get the easy one out of the way. That would be one Mr. Devin Neal. Devin Neal had 37 carries, 207, 3 touchdowns, 4 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. I know I mentioned the stats earlier, but they bear repeating because it is unbelievable. 4 total touchdowns for Devin Neal. And, he ended up with 3 rushing touchdowns, 4 total touchdowns. I put this out on KU Stat of the Day on Blue Sky. James Sims, the last time KU played Colorado was that crazy comeback for KU in which they had 35 points in the fourth quarter to win. You go from being down 28 to winning in regulation in the fourth quarter. James Sims tied the KU record with 4 rushing touchdowns that game. Devin Neal has never done it. He got 4 total touchdowns, didn't get the rushing touchdowns. He's 1 away. If they would have maybe given him the ball more at the end of the first half possession, the one that made it 23-20 or 23-14, maybe he does get the record, but still an unbelievable performance. Build him a statue. And what's crazy to me looking back, like, the amount of times, whether it was on a swing pass to Devin Neal, whether it was on a run, and this isn't just a this game thing, like this is something we've seen all throughout Devin Neal's career and what makes him such a good running back because he finds the hidden yards. The amount of times where Devin Neal gets the ball, and you could just take a freeze frame, you could take a screenshot of Devin Neal maybe 2-3 yards behind the line of scrimmage with the football in his hands. And there's 1 or 2 guys, like there's either one guy straight on from him that looks like he's ready to make a one-on-one tackle, or in a couple of these cases in this game, there's 2 guys who are kind of angled, coming in ready to sandwich him, like at the line of scrimmage or a yard behind the line of scrimmage. And you're like, oh no, how is he going to get past this one? And it's like, yeah, maybe if we're lucky, like if you screenshotted it right there, you'd be like, maybe if you're lucky, you get back to the line of scrimmage. And then all of a sudden you fast forward to the end of the play, it's a 7-yard gain. It's on the screen pass, basically, it's a touchdown. Right? It's unbelievable his ability to find hidden yards. And that's why he's going to be successful in my mind in the NFL, moving on from this afterwards. They're like, he's not the fastest guy in the world. I don't think he's going to run a 4.4, right? I mean, he's got enough speed to make it work, but he's not running a 4.3. He's not Tyreek Hill out there. He's got unbelievable vision. He has an unbelievable ability to find the hidden yards. He has a want-to. He stays on balance. He's so impressive, man. I can't speak enough of how good Devin Neal is. And then you get a little bit of the strength in there too. When it's 23-21, the touchdown he has, where he kind of trucks the guy and then reaches the ball forward, where it shows the combination of power and balance, which I think is a perfect description of everything as well. Like, just perfection, man. Jalon Daniels gets a good goat here too for KU. Like I said, they didn't need him to throw a ton. He was 14 of 21 for 189 yards, but that's 9 yards a pass, which is a really good number. He had a touchdown, no interceptions, very important there, and he had 6 carries for 72 yards. So, I mean, 27 plays basically for 260 yards. Like, it was a very efficient, very good game for Jalon Daniels. And how about that, Warren Sapp? Warren Sapp, Jalon Daniels wants to run around and take hits. Our defense is going to be hitting him. It's a decision for him. He can decide if he wants to keep it or pitch it. Well, guess what? Jalon Daniels just pulled another spin move off and forced another Colorado defender to miss him. Because when you needed any key play that wasn't Devin, it was like, hey, this is going to be the Devin Neal show. Every so often, Jalon, we're going to need you to make a key play. And he made him. He was excellent in this game, as he really has been over these last 5, 6, 7 games, whatever it's been for KU at this point in time. Now the question becomes, which maybe this for another episode, will Jalon Daniels be back for next season? Because he went through senior day in this game. Now we did see, I think it was Kenny Logan went through senior day and then decided to come back for his extra year, his COVID year. Maybe Jalon ends up doing the same thing. No guarantees. You don't know. But obviously I think every KU fan would welcome him back with open arms at this point with how well he's really played over this back half of the season. As far as other good goats, I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time on the defensive side of the ball, like distinguishing. Not that there were, that makes it sound like they played poorly. Again, I thought the defense overall played well. Like, you give up only 21 points to one of the most explosive offenses in the conference in the country. You had some situational key stops in the end, and it wasn't like you just made stops because you forced turnovers. They did pretty well, but I'm trying to think who the standouts would be. I mean, statistically, Cornell Wheeler had 9 tackles in a TFL. They were also kind of attacking over the middle of the field on you. Felt like Mello Dotson played a pretty good game, had 4 tackles, had some key coverages here or there, but without without watching the All-22 or going back and looking at the Pro Football Focus numbers or something, like, I'd be curious to know, like, who on the back end was targeted. Or like with Kobe Bryant, seems like on paper he had 2 pass breakups, had 3 tackles, 1.5 TFL. Seems like he played a good game, but I'd love to see those numbers. Blake Harold had 4 tackles for KU, so good to see him continuing to do well at the defensive tackle spot. I think Dean Miller on first watch played well. He had 3 tackles. He had half a sack, 1.5 TFLs, a pass breakup. He had another pass rush where he nearly hit the quarterback. I thought he was being held. They didn't call it, and I think he would have got the quarterback if that wasn't the case. So, like, it was just a mixed result of a lot of players, I think, making some key performances for the KU defense. So shout-outs to them. And then other shout-outs, which is kind of our in-between of like, yeah, you deserve a shout-out, but it's not quite GOAT status. Besides, I think, a lot of those defenders. Savion Morrison, he had 11 carries for 47 yards. Most carries he's had in a KU uniform. He was, on the plays where Devin Neal just needed a spell, needed to keep him rested, like Savion Morrison did what he needed to do. And then Tabor Allen, it's not GOAT status when your longest field goal is 25 yards, but you went 3 for 3 on field goals. You went perfect for PATs, and each point, it certainly mattered. As far as the bad GOATs, less to do here, but I do want to go over 2 things. Whatever was causing Travis Hunter to get, like, untouched touchdowns, I mean, he had that screen touchdown where he was just, like, untouched, and he's just like, I'm faster than you. There's good blocking. I'm not going to be touched. See ya. There was the other touchdown that began the second half where he just, like, floated open in the secondary. Whatever led to those things and him running wild, no more of that, please. Again, he's an unbelievable talent, and I think would be a deserving Heisman winner for Colorado. But, yeah, you can't make it easy on him that way. And then Jeff Grimes' goal-to-go play calling in the first half. Second half, I thought they did a better job where they were like, hey, we're going to give the ball to Devin Neal, which is like great because Devin Neal has been unbelievable this game and it's senior day and he's really good at finding the end zone. Especially that end of the first half one. Like, it's mainly the 3rd and goal. Like, should they have just kept giving the ball to Devin Neal? Probably. But the 3rd and goal at the 2, I'm specifically thinking of. KU still had a timeout, so they could have stopped the clock if they didn't get it. And instead, they decided to throw at Travis Hunter. And immediately in my mind, as he's throwing it to Quentin Skinner on that little out route in the end zone, I had like flashes in my mind of that Travis Hunter, like, I forget if it was a one-handed interception or whatever, against TCU in their opener in the 2023 season. I'm like, no. give the ball to Devin Neal. Let him ride out. And I think that bared out. So didn't love that in the first half. Just feed your beast. No need to overcomplicate it. But overall, very good day for KU football. And yeah, there probably were some performances. We'll get into the top and bottom PFF performers, and we'll get into more of that as we rewatch the game as well on a takeaway episode coming up earlier next week. All right, let's finish up here. What is next, though, for KU football? This is Locked On Jayhawks. Our episode today is brought to you by GameTime, which is a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes season tickets to see your favorite teams or live events, whether you're going to comedy, theater, whatever it is, even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It makes it a lot easier. And with the seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you even buy. Plus, they have the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime Picks. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. So next up for KU football, at Baylor to finish out the regular season. Hopefully, there are 2 more games for KU football, that game and the bowl game. Now, if you lose that game, you're 5-7, you won't make a bowl. I don't believe KU has good enough APR scores, I guess, if a bunch of teams in front of you in that regard opted out, or I guess maybe if the teams in front of you were 4-8, then maybe that'd give you a chance. I don't know. Just win this game, take care of business, try to make a bowl game. Hopefully that would be ideal. Now, the time is not determined yet. It'll be Saturday, November 30th. We'll find out for that one on either Sunday or Monday what time the game will be for Kansas and Baylor. I believe we'll find out on Sunday. So we'll find out for that there. As far as some of the other stuff going on, KU women's basketball landing 2 top 30 recruits during the middle of the week. Huge for Brandon Schneider, who now has 3 top 50 commits for the class of 2025. So, that team in 2025 and then 2026 could be really, really good and really exciting. So fun stuff there for KU women's basketball. Also, KU basketball, the men's side, going to have a big week upcoming. Of course, everybody is circling the big game upcoming this week against Furman, and we'll have your preview for that one. Obviously, we will also talk the KU Duke game. That one coming up on Tuesday. Duke coming off a big win at Arizona where they beat them by double digits. So should be a fun one. KU and Duke in Vegas. We'll preview that one coming up on Tuesday. We will have a top takeaways from KU football and KU basketball episode coming out on Monday. KU Duke preview coming out on Tuesday. So make sure to subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. But that'll do it for us today here with Locked On Jayhawks. Devin Neal Day, a success. KU football 37. Colorado 21. Jayhawks improved to 5-6. We'll see you next time with Locked On Jayhawks.